All right, I've got my soil in my 6-cell tray here. I've got some seeds poured out. Again, sinigang haba, or as in Tagalog means long green fingers. I do 2 per cell, and that way I'm almost guaranteed that I get at least one of them that'll come up. I could obviously just put one, and they should sprout up, but they don't always. You don't always, every seed you get an actual germination from. So I always put 2 in each cell. Now in some of the big 3-inch cell for my tomatoes, squashes, etc., I may even put 3 seeds per hole because they've got a lot more room to grow. And of course, the family will eat more of those vegetables than the hot peppers. Okay, again, 2 per cell. Now, all the extras I'll put back in the container for next season, or in case I've got to replant these if I don't get enough successful germination. All right, now that I've got those in there, I want to then close the soil over the top. Another reason why I put them in the middle, because I can take soil from the edges and then lightly cover, lightly tamp down. Don't press down too hard. Another stick. But I will tamp down dirt from the sides and the corners, and then I'll make sure that there's nothing big covering the actual seeds. Again, you don't want to block the seedling, the gentle small seedlings to be able to reach the surface and get to the sunlight. Okay. It's very easy. They don't need much dirt on, well, in this case, it's peat moss on top of them. They don't need much, maybe 1/8 of an inch or even a 1/16. Again, you don't need to bury them. If you bury them too deep, they'll never get to the surface fast enough to outlive the energy got, and it may just die and not germinate. All right, now that I've got them all covered, tamp down lightly. What I want to do is now hydrate this to make sure the soil is extremely wet. I will move that perlite off the top of the seeds. And again, you don't want to come and do this with a lot of force, because you could uncover the seeds to where they're exposed to the air. You just want to lightly spray to make sure the soil is wet, because they need moisture during the whole time of germination. As these are on the heat map and under the grow lights, you want to make sure they're constantly moist. You don't want to make sure they're drowning in water. You just want to make sure it's moist. A seed that dries will stop germinating. You need to have a wet soil, a wet grow medium. Let me rephrase that. Soil means this actually has dirt, some kind of nutrients in it. Again, my seed starting mix is just peat moss and perlite, and with a little bit of earthworm castings. I'll make sure that these are very well wet. And then one trick I'll do is I'll water them every day as they're on the heat map and underneath the grow lights, just to make sure that they're moist. Again, you don't want the seeds drowning, but you want to make sure the soil is moist. That's what starts the actual germination process. All right, now that I've got them planted, the soil's moist, and something that is just as important, I want to label this what this is. Because when I put these in this tray here, as you can tell, I won't know what's what. So I'm going to try to label these. And I should have made sure I had my pen here before I started the video. And apparently I don't. I do have a backup here. And remember, edit this part out. Okay. All right, include this on in the video. All right, now that I've got my pin and my tag, it's just a little tag I can set down here. I will label it. In this case, I will put S-I-L for siligang, which is Tagalog for chili. And then haba for siling haba. Or in other words, long green finger chilies in Tagalog. Of course, I do varieties from all over the world. There. Now this cell is planted. The soil is moist. It is labeled. As you can tell on the bottom, I've got soil all the way to the bottom. And that's very important because what I'll do is once these germinate and plants actually start growing, I'll no longer water top water. I always bottom water, right? And what this does is, since there's soil all the way to the bottom, right? As I set it in my tray, again, let me get my tray here. As I set it in this tray here, all I have to do is put water, and it takes about a half a gallon per 10 by 20 tray to get enough water so every cell can get water. So it just sits in the water. I'll leave that in there. Again, this is once you have sprouted seedlings, 20 to 30 minutes just to make sure that all the way to the surface gets wet. Because what will happen is this soil here will wick the water up, and you want the water to get all the way to the surface. Once the surface is wet, then I can go pour out the excess water. You do not want these sitting in excess water. You'll start getting dampening off. The roots will drown and die. The roots still need to breathe. They don't need to get directly to oxygen, but they do take nutrients out of the roots. If they're constantly setting in a water bath in the soil, they eventually will die. And I know some people will come back and say, well, what about hydroponics? Well, that's how they started growing. They germinated, the seedling broke from the seed immediately into water, so they adapt. And then you can get them to adapt to soil at that point. But if you start them in soil, you don't want them sitting in water constantly, but especially once they're seedlings, because what will happen is the roots will start dying. They won't be able to support the plant. You'll start seeing the plants just fall down and they'll just die. But that's how I do all of my seedlings, and I've got 11 more of these trays. When I get these all finished and get all the seedlings in them, the seeds in them, we'll come back and see a finished tray. Then I'll show you what I do with the tray, get it under the humidity dome, get the heat mat turned on, and then we'll follow this tray, particularly my seedling haba, throughout up potting, put him in a container out in the garden, and watching fertilizing, watering, updates all the way to all the harvesting, all the way to the end of the season, which for me in the Katy, Texas area, outside of Houston, I'm in zone 9A, I have gotten harvests of peppers and vegetables on New Year's Day. So it is now the beginning of March. I do my planting in phases. I will show you some of the plants I've already got out, but I just wanted to wait till a rainy day so that I wasn't outside to show you this. But we'll follow this tray all the way to getting in a garden, harvesting, garden updates, etc., all the way to the end of the year, which will be December of this year. Again, it's only March. Thank you for joining now. But when I get this all covered, I'll come back and you can see how this actually proceeds.